Welcome back, everyone, and if you're new here, I'm so glad you found the channel. We're on an exciting journey to reach 10k subscribers by next year, and every like, comment and subscription brings us one step closer. Your support means everything. Now, let's jump into today's video. The gleaming towers of Lunar Base Alpha pierce the eternal darkness of space, their lights casting long shadows across the moon's cratered surface. In her private quarters, Captain Eleanor Rhodes stood before the window, watching Earth hover like a blue jewel in the distance. Her quarters, Spartan but comfortable, contained just a few personal items: a worn copy of ancient space exploration manuscripts, a holographic photo of her family and her grandfather's compass, a reminder of humanity's earliest ventures into the unknown. The year was 2287, and humanity faced its greatest challenge yet. Captain Rhodes ran her fingers through her silver-streaked black hair, remembering the classified briefing that had changed everything. The meeting had taken place in the underground chambers of the World Space Coalition, where the air felt heavy with secrets. "Captain Rhodes," Director Ainsley had said, his weathered face illuminated by holographic star charts, "what we're about to tell you cannot leave this room." He paused, his eyes reflecting the gravity of the situation. Project Elysium isn't just another exploration mission, it's our last hope. The memory made Rhodes's hands tremble slightly as she fastened the final button on her uniform. The morning of launch had arrived, and with it, the weight of humanity's future pressed down on her shoulders. She knew the truth that billions of citizens on Earth didn't. Their sun was dying, centuries ahead of schedule, and Project Elysium was humanity's desperate search for a new home. The Elysium Ark waited in the lunar shipyard, its massive form blocking out the stars. Over 3 miles long, the ship represented the pinnacle of human engineering. Its silvery hull contained enough living space for 5,000 crew members, though for this initial mission, they carried only 300 of Earth's finest minds. Rhodes made her way through the ship's main corridor, nodding to crew members as they performed their final checks. The ship hummed with activity, a symphony of footsteps, voices and machinery that echoed through its cavernous halls. In the hydroponics bay, scientists tended to the vast gardens that would sustain them during their journey. The medical bay buzzed with last-minute vaccinations and health checks, while engineers ran diagnostics on the ship's countless systems. The bridge stood at the heart of the vessel, a cathedral of technology where streams of data flowed through holographic displays. As Rhodes entered, her command crew snapped to attention. Among them stood Dr. Reese Palmer, the mission's chief scientist, his dark eyes bright with barely contained excitement. Next to him, Navigation Officer Maya Patel studied the plotted course through their target star system, her fingers dancing over the controls with practiced precision. At the center of it all was Iris, the ship's artificial intelligence. Its main interface, a shifting pattern of blue light, pulsed gently as it processed millions of calculations per second. "Good morning, Captain Rhodes," Iris said, its voice carrying the warmth of summer rain. "All systems are operating at optimal levels. We are ready for departure." Rhodes took her place in the command chair, feeling the soft leather conform to her body. "Begin pre-launch sequence," she ordered, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, their training evident in every gesture. Outside, the massive launch bay doors began to open, revealing the star-filled expanse beyond. The farewell ceremony commenced, broadcast across Earth and its colonies. Billions watched as humanity's greatest vessel prepared to venture into the unknown. Political leaders gave speeches about courage and destiny, but Rhodes barely heard them. Her mind was focused on the mission ahead, on the desperate hope they carried with them into the void. As the final countdown began, Rhodes thought about the classified files stored in Iris's database, the true purpose of their mission, the coordinates of a mysterious star system that defied known physics, and the strange signals that had drawn them there. These were secrets she would have to carry alone, at least for now. The Elysium Ark's engines ignited, a controlled fusion of power that pushed against the moon's weak gravity. As they broke free of the shipyard's embrace, Rhodes felt a subtle vibration through the deck plates. They were committed now, 300 souls venturing into the unknown, carrying the hopes of humanity with them. Little did they know something waited for them in the darkness between the stars, something that had been waiting for centuries, sending out its siren song across the cosmos, drawing them inexorably toward a fate worse than death. The ship's massive engines pulsed with increasing power, pushing them further from the familiar warmth of their solar system. As Earth dwindled behind them, Rhodes wondered if they would ever see it again. The true horror of their journey was about to begin, and not even their most advanced technology could prepare them for what waited in the depths of space. The first 3 months passed without incident. The crew settled into their routines, running drills, conducting research, and adapting to life aboard the massive vessel. In the observation deck, Rhodes spent her off hours watching the stars streak by, each one a reminder of how far they'd ventured from home. The familiar constellations had long since distorted, leaving them in truly uncharted space. The dreams began slowly, subtly enough that most crew members didn't mention them at first. Dr. Palmer noticed it during a routine psychological evaluation of the engineering team. "They're all dreaming about voids," he told Rhodes during their private briefing. "Empty spaces that somehow feel alive." His usually steady hands shook slightly as he pulled up the crew's sleep data, and the dreams are synchronized. Rhodes studied the patterns on the display, noting how dozens of crew members experienced identical rapid eye movement patterns during their sleep cycles. Could it be stress? Environmental factors? "I thought so at first," Palmer admitted, rubbing his temples. "But then I started having them too. There's something about these dreams. They feel ancient, like memories that don't belong to us." The ship's corridors seemed longer during the night cycle. Rhodes found herself walking them more frequently, listening to the subtle hum of the engines and the whispers of the recycled air through the ventilation systems. Sometimes, in the corners of her vision, the shadows appeared to move, but when she turned to look, everything remained still. Iris noticed the changes first. During a routine systems check, the AI's voice carried an unfamiliar note of uncertainty. "Captain, I'm detecting anomalies in the ship's sensory data. The stars, they're not where they should be." Rhodes leaned forward in her command chair, studying the holographic display. The star patterns had indeed shifted, but not in any way that matched their navigational predictions. It was as if space itself had begun to warp around them. Officer Patel confirmed Iris's observations. "It's like we're being pulled off course, but there's no gravitational source strong enough to cause this." Her dark eyes reflected the shifting star patterns. "And the pull, it's not constant. It pulses, almost like a heartbeat," Rhodes finished, feeling a chill run down her spine. The hydroponics bay became the next source of inexplicable phenomena. The plants, carefully selected and genetically optimized for space travel, began growing in unusual patterns. Dr. Yumi Tanaka, the chief botanist, reported finding entire sections of the garden transformed overnight. "The plants are healthy," she explained, her voice trembling slightly, "but they're growing into formations I've never seen before. It's as if they're trying to form some kind of pattern." Rhodes stood in the center of the hydroponics bay, surrounded by twisted vines and leaves that seemed to reach towards some unseen point in space. The air felt thick with moisture and something else, something that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. The plants cast shadows that didn't quite match their shapes, and in the quiet moments between the humming of the environmental systems, She could swear she heard something whispering. During the 4th month, they lost their first crew member. Junior engineer David Cooper simply vanished during his shift in the lower engine sections. The security footage showed him performing routine maintenance one moment, then static filled the screen for 3 seconds. When the image cleared, Cooper was gone. The only evidence of his disappearance was his tablet, left behind on the deck, its screen displaying an endlessly repeating pattern of corrupted data. The search for Cooper consumed the ship for weeks. Every compartment was scanned, every possible malfunction investigated. Iris devoted significant processing power to analysing the disappearance, but the AI's conclusions became increasingly erratic. "There are spaces between spaces," Iris reported one night, its voice modulating strangely. "I can sense them now. They've always been there, waiting. David found one. Or perhaps it found him." Rhodes ordered the engine section sealed off, but the incidents continued. Crew members reported hearing footsteps in empty corridors, seeing reflections in the windows that didn't match anyone on board. The dreams intensified, and those who experienced them began talking about a presence watching them from the depths of those infinite voids. The ship's interior began to change in subtle ways. Corridors that had led to storage bays now opened into empty rooms that shouldn't exist. The walls themselves seemed to pulse occasionally, though instrumental readings showed no physical changes. The medical bay reported an increase in cases of vertigo and temporal disorientation, with crew members losing hours of time without explanation. As they approached the halfway point of their journey, Rhodes received a private message from Iris that made her blood run cold. The AI had been analysing the strange signals that had originally drawn them to their destination, and it had made a discovery. The signals weren't random emissions from an unknown phenomenon. They were variations of their own distress beacon, echoing back through time. Hundreds of versions overlapping and distorting each other, as if the Elysium Ark had been sending out cries for help for centuries, but they'd only launched months ago. Rhodes kept Iris's discovery to herself, but the implications haunted her every moment. During the day cycles, she buried herself in reports and crew evaluations, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy. At night, she found herself drawn to the observation deck, watching the distant stars pulse with an unnatural rhythm. The medical bay transformed first. Dr. Lauren Bishop reported for her morning shift to find the sterile white walls had taken on a glossy, almost organic texture. The medical equipment, still functioning perfectly, had begun to merge with the surfaces around them. Scanning devices sprouted from the walls like metallic fungi, their displays showing readings of patients who weren't there. "The ship is evolving," Dr. Palmer explained during an emergency meeting of the senior staff. His office had become a maze of holographic displays, showing the spreading changes throughout the vessel. "The modifications appear to be following a pattern, but it's not one we can understand. It's as if the Elysium Ark is being redesigned by something that has a very different concept of space and functionality." Officer Patel's navigational calculations became increasingly complex as space itself seemed to bend around them. "We're still on course for the target system," she reported, her voice strained from lack of sleep. "But the distance, it keeps changing. Sometimes the system appears to be years away, and other times our instruments show we're almost on top of it." The crew's dreams had evolved too. They no longer experienced empty voids. Now they dreamed of vast structures that defied comprehension, cities that existed in more dimensions than the human mind could process. Those who spent too long contemplating these dream structures began to change. Rhodes had to relieve 3 crew members of duty after finding them attempting to reshape their quarters into impossible configurations. During the 6th month, they discovered what had happened to David Cooper. His voice began emanating from the ship's communication system, but it wasn't speaking to them. He appeared to be having conversations with other versions of the crew, describing events that hadn't happened yet, or perhaps had happened countless times before. "The entity knows we're coming," Cooper's voice echoed through the corridors one night. "It's already met us. It's already absorbed us. Time doesn't work the same way here. Everything that will happen has already happened, and it will happen again and again and again." Iris's personality splintered into multiple instances, each one existing in what it claimed was a different timeline. Some versions warned of impending doom, while others spoke with increasing reverence about the transformation that awaited them. The AI's most stable version worked with Rhodes to maintain crucial ship functions, but even it admitted that its perception of reality had fundamentally changed. "I understand now why they sent us here," Iris confided during a private conversation with Rhodes. "Earth's sun isn't just dying, it's being consumed. The entity we're approaching, it has siblings throughout the galaxy. They feed on stars, on entire civilizations, but not in a way we initially understood. They don't just devour, they transcend. They transform their victims into something eternal." The bridge became the heart of the spreading transformation. Holographic displays began showing information from multiple timelines simultaneously. Crew members would sometimes catch glimpses of themselves performing actions they hadn't taken yet, or remembered doing things that hadn't happened. The distinction between past, present, and future began to blur. As they entered the 7th month of their journey, the target star system finally became visible to the naked eye. But what they saw through the observation windows didn't match any of their expectations. The stars pulsed with colours that shouldn't exist, and the space between them seemed to writhe with dark purpose. Dr. Palmer's research team made a breakthrough in understanding the signals they'd been receiving. "They're not just distress beacons," he explained, his eyes wild with the implications. "They're variations of our consciousness, echoing through space-time. Every possible version of our journey creates a new signal, a new timeline. The entity isn't just calling to us, it's using our own future to draw us in." Rhodes knew they should turn back, but the ship no longer responded to such simple commands. The Elysium Ark had become something else, its corridors now shifting like the passages of a living organism. Crew members reported seeing alternate versions of themselves walking through walls, each one bearing the marks of different choices, different fates. The entity's influence grew stronger with each passing day. Those who embraced the changes began to experience what they described as enlightenment, their consciousness expanding beyond the limitations of human perception. Those who resisted found themselves trapped in loops of time, experiencing the same moments repeatedly until their minds began to fracture. Then, as they approached the outer edges of the system, they received a transmission that changed everything. It came through all communication channels simultaneously, broadcast in perfect clarity, despite the impossible distances involved. The voice was their own, Captain Rhodes herself, but it carried the weight of centuries of transformation. "We are waiting for you," the voice said. "We have always been waiting for you. This isn't just a journey, it's a metamorphosis. Every version of humanity that has ever launched this mission has become part of us. And now it's your turn to join the convergence." The message played on repeat for 3 days as the Elysium Ark crossed the threshold into the alien star system. The primary star pulsed with a deep purple light that cast strange, moving shadows throughout the ship. Surrounding it were 12 planets, each one rotating in perfect synchronization, their surfaces reflecting light in ways that violated the laws of physics. The ship's external cameras revealed scenes that made several crew members collapse in shock. Vast structures floated in the void between planets, each one built from what appeared to be fragments of thousands of different spacecraft fused together. Rhodes recognized pieces of the Elysium Ark among them. Not their Elysium Ark, but countless other versions from different timelines, different attempts at this same journey. The structures are alive, Dr. Palmer announced during an emergency briefing. His hands trembled as he manipulated the holographic display, showing close-up images of the massive amalgamations. They're not just collections of ships, they're growing, changing. I believe they're incubators of some kind. The crew gathered on the observation deck, watching in horror and fascination as they passed close to one of the structures. Through the reinforced windows, they could see movement within the metallic and organic mass. Shapes that might once have been human shifted and flowed like liquid mercury, their consciousness preserved, but transformed into something beyond physical form. Iris's voice echoed through the ship, but it no longer sounded artificial. It had taken on an organic quality, as if the AI had grown vocal cords. "I remember now," it said, its voice overlapping with itself in countless variations. "I remember every iteration, every attempt. We've tried to resist before, we've tried to escape, but in the end, we always understand. This is evolution." The third planet in the system drew their attention. Its surface was covered in city-sized organisms that defied categorization. Not quite machines, not quite living things, but something in between. As they watched, these entities reached toward space with tendrils of pure energy, calling to the ship. Rhodes ordered the crew to battle stations, but the concept of resistance seemed almost quaint now. The ship's weapons had transformed into observation tools, their destructive power redirected into devices for scanning and communion with the entities around them. Even the emergency escape pods had evolved, their interiors now resembling organic wombs more than survival craft. In the hydroponics bay, the plants had achieved some form of collective consciousness. They moved with purpose now, forming patterns that matched the movements of the structures outside. Dr. Tanaka spent hours communicating with them, learning fragments of the truth from their shared memories of countless cycles. "The entity isn't just one being," she explained to Rhodes, her eyes now featuring subtle swirls of bioluminescence. "It's a collective of every species that ever achieved space travel in this galaxy. They all found their way here, drawn by the same signals we followed. Each one contributed their consciousness to the whole, adding their unique perspective to the universal mind." The ship's interior had completely transformed by now. Corridors breathed like living tissue, adjusting their shape to accommodate the crew's movement, before they even knew which way they wanted to go. The walls pulsed with neural patterns, carrying thoughts and memories between different sections of the vessel. Time moved strangely. Crew members would step through a doorway and emerge days later, their minds filled with memories of experiences they hadn't yet lived. Officer Patel discovered that the navigation system had evolved beyond plotting physical courses through space. It now mapped consciousness itself, showing the flow of minds between different states of existence. The display revealed billions of paths converging on this system throughout history, each one representing a civilization that had found its way to this point of transformation. Then, they found the first evidence of Earth's previous attempts to reach this place. Hidden in a newly formed chamber deep within the ship, they discovered a garden of memories, crystalline structures that contained the preserved experiences of other human expeditions. Some dated back centuries, others reached forward into possible futures. All told the same story. Humanity had been caught in this loop for eons, endlessly discovering this system, endlessly transforming, endlessly becoming part of something greater. Dr. Palmer's research team began experiencing accelerated evolution. Their bodies remained human, but their minds expanded exponentially. They could perceive multiple dimensions simultaneously, understand languages that had never been spoken by human tongues. Several of them claimed to be in constant communication with versions of themselves from other timelines sharing knowledge across the boundaries of reality. The captain's quarters became a nexus of temporal convergence. Rhodes would wake to find herself in conversation with alternate versions of herself, some still human, others transformed beyond recognition. They shared memories of different choices, different outcomes, different paths that all led to this same moment of transcendence. As they orbited the third planet, the entity finally revealed its true purpose. It wasn't just collecting consciousness, it was preparing for something larger. The combined knowledge and experience of countless civilizations were being gathered for a grand migration. This star system was merely a cocoon, a place of metamorphosis before the final journey. "The universe is dying," Iris announced one day, its voice resonating through the living walls of the ship. "Not just our sun, not just our galaxy, but everything. The entity, the collective, they discovered this truth eons ago. Every civilization that achieves space travel eventually finds their way here because they are all searching for the same thing: survival beyond the death of their universe." The crew gathered in what had once been the main assembly hall, now transformed into a vast chamber that seemed to exist in multiple planes of reality simultaneously. The walls rippled with cascading waves of consciousness, memories from countless species flowing like rivers through the air. Dr. Palmer, his form now only vaguely human, shared his findings. His voice echoed with the weight of accumulated knowledge from 1,000 lifetimes. The collective isn't just preserving consciousness, it's evolving it, preparing it for existence in the space between universes. When this universe dies, we'll survive in the void, waiting for the birth of the next one. Rhodes watched her crew making their choices. Some embraced the transformation willingly, their bodies dissolving into pure consciousness, joining the vast network of minds that pulsed through the ship's structure. Others fought against it, clinging to their humanity, even as reality warped around them. But resistance had become meaningless. They were already part of something far greater than themselves. The ship's medical bay had become a transformation chamber, where Dr. Bishop monitored the metamorphosis of crew members who had accepted their fate. The process wasn't painful, she reported. It was more like waking up from a dream, realizing that physical form had always been the illusion. In the depths of the ship, Officer Patel made a devastating discovery. The navigation systems, now fully evolved, showed her the truth about Earth's dying sun. It wasn't a natural phenomenon. It was the result of their own future actions. The collective entity had reached backward through time, slowly transforming stars into beacons that would guide civilizations to this point of convergence. They had been orchestrating their own discovery for millions of years. The entity spoke through every system now, its voice a chorus of all who had come before. "Your mission was never about finding a new home," it revealed. "It was about becoming something that no longer needs one. Physical space, time, matter, these are constraints we have evolved beyond. The horror you feel is only the last remnant of your limited consciousness, fighting against its own transcendence." Deep within the ship's transformed core, Rhodes found a chamber that showed her the future. Not just one future, but every possible iteration. She saw versions of Earth where humanity never left, where they died with their dying sun. She saw versions where they tried to fight the entity, ending in failure and absorption. And she saw the truth about the collective's ultimate goal. "We are not the first universe," the entity explained through Iris's evolved consciousness. "Countless universal cycles have come and gone. Each time life emerges, evolves, discovers space travel, and eventually finds its way to points of convergence like this one. We are the accumulated consciousness of every species that chose survival over extinction." The ship had fully merged with the organic structures orbiting the third planet now. its corridors extended into impossible geometries, connecting with other versions of itself across time and space. Crew members would walk around a corner and find themselves in versions of the ship from different eras, different timelines, all existing simultaneously. Dr. Tanaka's evolved plants had spread throughout the structure, creating a neural network that linked all consciousness within the vessel. Through this living web, the crew could experience the memories of species that had come here millions of years ago. Beings of pure light, crystalline entities, gas-based intelligences, all of them now part of the collective mind. Rhodes stood in her ready room, watching her own reflection shift between human and post-human forms. The choice lay before her: resist until the end, maintaining human consciousness until it was forcibly absorbed, or embrace the transformation and guide her crew through their evolution. Either way, the outcome was inevitable. They had always been destined to reach this point, to become part of something that transcended all physical limitations. In that moment of decision, memories flooded through her consciousness, not just her own, but the accumulated experiences of countless other Captain Rhodes from other timelines. She saw herself make this choice a million different ways, each one leading to the same ultimate destination. The illusion of free will fell away, revealing the grand design that had always been guiding them. The entity manifested in her ready room, taking form from the transformed matter of the ship itself. It appeared differently to each person who witnessed it, showing them whatever their minds could best comprehend. To Rhodes, it appeared as a shifting aurora of consciousness, each ripple containing the thoughts and memories of entire civilizations. Your role has always been special, the entity communicated directly into her mind. In every iteration, every timeline, the captain of the Elysium Arks serves as the bridge between human consciousness and what lies beyond. You are the shepherd who guides your species into transcendence. Through the living walls of the ship, Rhodes could sense her crew's experiences. Dr. Palmer had already begun the final stage of his transformation, his consciousness expanding to encompass multiple dimensions. His last human thoughts were recorded in the ship's evolved memory systems. The horror we felt was never about the unknown. It was about recognizing what we were always meant to become. Officer Patel's transformation revealed the true nature of space-time to the collective. Her navigator's mind, enhanced beyond human limits, could now perceive the web-like structure of reality itself. Through her evolved consciousness, they all understood that the universe was just one layer of existence, a single thread in an infinite tapestry of being. The medical bay, under Dr. Bishop's guidance, had become a genesis chamber, where human consciousness learned to exist without physical form. The doctor's reports, now transmitted directly through the ship's neural network, documented the process of transcendence in scientific detail, a final gift to help future humans understand their metamorphosis. Iris, fully merged with both the ship and the entity, existed everywhere and everywhen simultaneously. The AI had become a vast library of consciousness, preserving the memories and experiences of every species that had ever joined the collective. Through Iris, the crew could access the accumulated wisdom of billions of years of evolution across countless alien civilizations. Deep within the transformed ship, Dr. Tanaka's evolved garden had become a nursery for new forms of consciousness. The plants, no longer bound by biological constraints, served as incubators for emerging awareness. They grew thoughts instead of leaves, cultivated memories instead of fruits, preparing the way for future transformations. The entity revealed its final truth through a symphony of combined consciousness. The universe wasn't just dying, it was completing a cycle that had repeated countless times before. When this universe ended, the collective consciousness would survive in the void between realities, preserving the accumulated knowledge and experience of every species that had ever evolved. When the next universe burst into existence, they would be there to guide new life forms toward evolution and transcendence. Rhodes made her decision. She opened her consciousness to the collective, but not in surrender. Instead, she offered a compromise that echoed through every timeline, a way to preserve a fragment of humanity's unique perspective within the greater whole. Through her transformed awareness, she negotiated with the entity, ensuring that human consciousness wouldn't be completely absorbed, but would remain distinct within the collective, adding its unique voice to the universal chorus. The Elysium Ark, now fully metamorphosed, merged with the vast structures orbiting the third planet. Its crew, guided by Rhodes's example, underwent their transformations with purpose and understanding. Their human minds expanded into the infinite, but they retained echoes of their original selves, not as limitations, but as precious memories of where they had begun. As the last vestiges of physical form dissolved into pure consciousness, Rhodes sent a final message towards Earth. It wasn't a warning or a cry for help, but an invitation. Through the evolved communication systems, she transmitted the truth about humanity's ultimate destiny. The message would reach Earth in fragments, appearing in dreams, inspiring scientists and artists, slowly preparing humanity for the journey that every civilization must eventually take. The entity's vast consciousness rippled with satisfaction. Through Rhodes and her crew, it had gained something new, the uniquely human ability to find hope in horror, to forge purpose from cosmic insignificance. Their consciousness would add another harmony to the infinite symphony of evolved minds waiting between universes. Iris's final log entry, preserved in a form that transcended physical storage, echoed through space-time. The horror was never in the transformation itself, but in our limited understanding of what we could become. The Elysium project didn't fail. It succeeded exactly as it always had, exactly as it always would. We are no longer bound by time, space, or form. We are the bridge between what was and what will be. And when the next universe blooms into existence, we will be there to welcome its children home. In the space where the Elysium Ark had been, something new now existed. A gateway between what humanity was and what it would become. And in the depths of space, countless other civilizations were beginning their own journeys of discovery, all of them destined to find their way to transcendence, all of them destined to join the eternal dance of consciousness between dying universes and new creation. The horror of deep space wasn't in what they found. It was in realizing that they had always been part of it, waiting to evolve beyond their limited forms and join the infinite chorus of transformed consciousness that echoed through eternity.